horses have stopped prancing. A photo finish. Lando does it again, and the king reigns supreme. Let's jump the start.
Guys, welcome in. What a freaking race. I got to say that was highly enjoyable. This is Jump to Start podcast. Welcome in. My name is Wellington. I'm here with my two closest friends. Yancey Rubin, say hello.
What's up, guys?
What's going on?
What a really good race. It turned out to be a really good race at the end, man.
A very good race. Super exciting.
Another amazing finish at the end.
Very exciting.
Okay, so let's take it back all the way to the beginning of the weekend. Coming in to the weekend, we were looking at a couple of storylines. I'm just going to list them. Ferrari was coming into us with new updates for this race, so they wanted to make sure that everything was on the up and up, and that their car did better. We were also trying to identify really the true pace of all these cars. There was, the issues that Red Bull had last week with Max's car, the spin out from Albon. The sensor issues with all the Mercedes engines affecting Mercedes themselves, Racing Point, and Williams, as well as, like what we just talked about, the Ferrari upgrades. We kind of wanted to identify what we were going to be looking at, as well as also where the drivers stack up. We saw Norris put in a good race. Albon was fighting. Leclerc took a dog of a car to second place. Did we get any clarity coming out of this weekend?
I think we did. In one sense, yeah, we did. We did get like a pecking order. But we don't know exactly where Ferrari is. But even if the Ferraris had run the entire race, I don't think they would have. They probably would have been fighting with McLaren or Racing Point, which is definitely not where they want to be.
Yeah, I think this weekend didn't do it justice to Ferrari as far as they both went on early on, but it would have been a nice little pack between McLaren, Racing Point, and them.
Okay, so Friday, the Styrian Grand Prix, we had practice sessions 1 and 2. They were actually both pretty uneventful. Actually, practice 1 was headlined kind of by a surprise, with Sergio Perez being the fastest in FP1, and then the third fastest in FP2, and then Stroll 5th fastest in FP1 and 4th fastest in FP2. So it kind of called into question where exactly this car was versus the rest of the top teams. What did you guys think of the Friday sessions?
Well, that car was fast since testing, however how long ago that was. And I think it was pretty much expected. I personally wasn't surprised by it. I just think they picked the wrong strategy at the last race, and but that car is going to be quick all season. They basically copied last year's Mercedes, which was one hell of a car that's super fast. And even if you put that 2018 Mercedes, or sorry, 2019 Mercedes in this field, it's still going to be rather competitive. And you can see it by the tracing point.
Tracing point.
I think it's a car that's going to be, right competing compared to where it was last year. Regardless of how they obtain the power and the car itself, they're showing that they could be able to fight. In their way, they didn't show that, but they're showing that they're able to stay up. Like as you said last week, the race didn't do them any justice.
Yeah, as long as the conditions are dry, I think they're going to be good.
Yeah.
And that FP2 was actually pretty fun to watch because they didn't know what was going to happen with qualifying. So they were just putting in lap after lap, right, super fast. Everybody was going. It wasn't quite like a qualifying session, but it's as fun as you're going to get in a practice
right
session.
They were running their qualifying programs. Aside from the Racing Points, though, the top teams, and I'm going to use the term loosely, I'm just going to say it's Mercedes and Red Bull. They were both qualified also at the top, along with the Racing Points. But we mentioned qualifying. All day Saturday, it was It was pouring cats and dogs essentially at points, to the point that they had to cancel FP3 due to the rain. So it's exactly what Yancey was saying. The qualifying programs had to be put in on Friday.
Well,
So
if they didn't, I mean, let's say if they didn't get qualifying and they were going to use the times for FP2, so that would have been interesting if you look at the how they finished. It would have been an interesting race if they had started the race that way.
all right, so qualifying Saturday, they actually ended up having to delay the session because of the weather. Every driver came out on wets, and I believe that they have 3 wets for the race weekend. So they had the 3 sets of wets for all 3 qualifying sessions. So qualifying session number 1, the major surprise coming out of that was that George Russell in the Williams qualified for Q2. He ended up coming out of there, I believe it was P11 coming out of qualifying session 1.
That's like a victory.
Of course,
that car.
It's like pole position for them.
Yeah, he was about to. They should have given him a champagne bottle for that one.
I'm pretty sure probably the team celebrated that.
So coming out of the first session, though, there were some teams that actually used up more than one set of tires, and we heard, I think it was Brundle, say that Mercedes specifically stuck to one tire so that they could have fresh tires for Q2 and fresh tires for Q3. That ended up playing into their strategy later on. But in qualifying 2, we ended up losing Charles Leclerc. He finished 11th fastest, knocking him out going into Q3. And where is Ferrari? When we talk about Russell ended up qualifying P12 and Leclerc ended up P11, where the heck is Ferrari?
As I said in a previous podcast, they are nowhere. They have a huge problem on their hands, and it's twofold. One, their aerodynamic package doesn't seem to work, even though they didn't bring the whole thing. But I mean, even whatever they brought obviously didn't work when you're literally lingering at the in the midfield when you're supposed to be one of the top teams. And it is being said that their engine is now about 30 horsepower down from where it was last year.
Oh my god!
Like, so you might be faster. This car is faster through the corners, but it's a dog on the straights. You're not going to get anywhere, and it showed this weekend. It showed that they are in for
so we could say Ferrari has a turtle?
Tough season.
So we could say Ferrari has a turtle and everybody else has a rabbit?
Wow. Well, no, because at the end of the day, the turtle wins the race. So I don't know if we could even say
that.
No.
Hey, I'll take that. I'll take that as a fan. But yeah, they're nowhere, man. They're in trouble. And if they don't start showing, if they don't start updating that car, I mean, I don't even think, even if they do all these aerodynamic updates, if you're 30 horsepower down on that engine, I mean, you're not gonna go nowhere, man. They're in trouble. They're in real trouble. I'm not getting my hopes up for Ferrari at all, man.
So what do you think is the source that they need, Yancy? What do you think? Because obviously the upgrades is not going to do much to the engine as far as like when it goes to aerodynamics and stuff.
They can't do anything to the engine anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the issue. The next big upgrade for an engine is going to be next season. So they can't do anything to the engine. Aerodynamically, they could only do so much. Aerodynamically is only going to get you a few tenths.
Exactly.
But that's still not enough if you're losing more than almost a second on the straights.
Here's what they need to do. I'm sorry, Ruben?
What do you think happened yesterday? They dropped so much.
Well, you know what happened, bro.
Here's what they need. They need the Monstars to come out of the sky and get them some kind of boost, make them Space Jam level. But going into Q3, we ended up having what was an extremely fun Q3 in the sense that the track conditions kept improving. So what a lot of teams just ended up doing is just filled the cars with fuel and just said, have at it. Go around as many times as you can, as fast as you can. as the session went on, times kept getting better, but I don't think that it's what I said last night. When it comes to rain, there are two drivers that I want, and one is Lewis Hamilton, and the other is Max Verstappen, and that was turning out to be a duel until Max Verstappen spun at the end. What do you?
Yeah, but that, come on, that was, even if Max spun at the end, he was not gonna go anywhere near the lap that Hamilton put in. Hamilton was 1.3 seconds clear of everybody else. Hamilton just showed that he was not distracted.
All right.
And he showed why he's the best driver in the world and potentially the best driver ever. When the chips are down, Hamilton comes through.
When you need a lap,
that lap was magical.
Yeah.
Magical. It's up there with probably one of his greatest qualifying laps ever. His greatest was Singapore in 2018, but that lap was magical in the rain, no visibility. If you see the onboards, you can't see anything. Imagine driving a car around the track 150, 60 miles an hour in that visibility. You'll have a heart attack right then and there.
So we could say this is his best lap in the wets ever. Singapore, to me, is the best qualifying lap he's done.
Well, yeah. If you watch the 360 onboard of that one, especially the 360 onboard, that lap was crazy.
We'll throw a link for that into the show notes that we could all see that unbelievable lap. But I don't know if I would say it's his greatest wet lap ever. We'd have to go back and make sure to check that because it's a weird stat there. Rounding out qualifying, there were a couple of surprises. Carlos Sainz finished in the top 3. He qualified 3rd. Esteban Ocon, who had a great, I'm going to say this, he had a great weekend. Ended up qualifying in 5th position. He was fighting the whole time on Saturday. He really impressed me. He's put a lot of work into his craft, and it shows. And Lando Norris ended up finishing sixth, but he ended up taking a grid penalty. I think it was a 3-place grid penalty that knocked him down. But those were the surprises in qualifying.
I don't like those penalties I get why you need those penalties, but penalties in practice to affect you at the start of the race, I'm not a big fan of it. We're talking about practice here, man.
Yeah.
We're talking about practice. Yeah, but I get why, because obviously you're in a racing car. It's very dangerous conditions. You got to make sure that everybody is driving up to par. But for you to get a 3-place grid penalty in a race and you're fighting for points, I don't know. It's just, it doesn't fall well with me.
I mean,
okay, so
the nitpick. It looks like he's just being nitpicked, Like, let's find a reason to penalize somebody or something. Look at the strength Red Bull went to last weekend. They had to go to social media and all that stuff to just get some help.
Well, that's because they got to get an edge on Mercedes. I mean, the Mercedes is a class above the rest, man. They got to do something to bring them back to their level.
Gotcha.
All right, so at the start of the race, the actual starting grid shook out like this. I'm going to just go top to bottom. Lewis Hamilton first, Verstappen qualified or starting grid position second, Carlos Sainz third, Valtteri Bottas fourth, Esteban Ocon fifth. Both Sainz and Ocon, those are their 2 best career starting positions. Alex Albon sixth, Pierre Gasly seventh, Daniel Ricciardo eighth, Lando Norris ninth, and Sebastian Vettel 10th. Wow. Okay, so I'm going to take a step back here. I'm going to let my friend here rant a little bit. We're going to go to the start of the race where first turn was clean, and then things started getting a little hairy.
Hairy? That's your description?
What? Go ahead, Yancy. Come on, Bent.
Come on, man. It's just if you want to add insult to injury to an already bad weekend, crash into each other. And as much of a fan as I am as of Leclerc, what a dumb move that was. You see that first of all, you're starting in the back of the grid. So the reason why you want to qualify at the front of the grid is that you want to avoid the melee of other midfield cars just coming together at the first corner or even the second corner in the first lap. It's the reason why when the stewards, when they are assessing penalties, most of the time they'll give it a racing incident if it's on the first lap because it's just too much chaos. So if you're already having a bad weekend, you've taken a three grid uh, place penalty. Listen, man, just hang back and let the chaos ensue. But stay in the race. You got to score points. You already had an unexpected result in getting second place, so you got a great points haul in that. Why? Just stay in the race, get some points. You know the car's bad. You know the car's nowhere. Just go and just hang back, chill out, and stay in the race and get some points. Why are you so aggressive? What is the point? There is literally no room there. There's no room whatsoever. And then on top of that, you knock out your teammate. So you're just being like, it doesn't make any sense to me. That was so upsetting to me, and I don't know why he even did that. I guess we're gonna chuck it up to him being young. But at this point, you're the team leader. Vettel's not gonna be there anymore. You gotta be smarter than that. You gotta be smarter.
Yeah, I didn't like the desperation move. He showed like he was desperate to just jump ahead right away, and he didn't just work out at all because that was not the thing to do at that moment right there. It was just super weird that he even did it, on the first lap.
Yes. Right. So that was, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that was going into turn 3. What ended up happening is that obviously it's tight, it's all bunched up, it's the first lap. You have Sebastian Vettel making the turn. He's fighting. It's a melee, like Yancey said. He's fighting a bunch of cars. I can't really point out exactly who's fighting there, but Charles Leclerc kind of bombs in on the inside. It's actually a video game move, something that I would do. Bomb up on the inside with. Granted, I play with no damage, so then that would have solved the problem there.
Didn't Ruben do that to you?
No, he did it to me.
He
knocked into me
playing F1.
But what ended up happening is Charles Leclerc, essentially his wheel collides with or makes contact with Vettel's wheel, sending the rear of his car airborne and into the back of Sebastian Vettel's car, destroying Vettel's rear wing and then doing essentially irreparable damage to the bottom of Leclerc's car and the front wing. So it ended up, Vettel ended up retiring in lap 1. There was a safety car that came out. Vettel retired in lap 1, and Leclerc ended up retiring, I believe, a lap later because he just could not get the car around efficiently.
If the car is bad aerodynamically and you damage that floor, which is so important to that car, you're not going to get around. You're going to be running around in last place, so you might as well just retire the car. And in Vettel's case, when you destroy a front wing, there's so many moving parts on that front wing, especially the DRS. When you have to open the DRS, the rear wing. I'm sorry, the rear wing. Yeah, he destroyed the rear wing. I'm sorry. When you destroy the rear wing, you're going to be out because it's not like the front wing where you can just change the whole nose. There's so many moving parts on that rear wing that you're going to be out. So it was just a disaster. It was a complete disaster. It's definitely not what Ferrari needed. Let's see where they're at next week. I mean, it's going to be a tough season regardless for them.
Yeah, to say the least. Yeah. So from there, we see our boy, or my boy, George Russell fighting with Kevin Magnussen. He ends up going out wide. This is in lap 4, and that kind of ends up tanking his race. He goes out into the gravel, and then that pretty much wraps it up for him. He doesn't have the car to be able to have him catch up.
Not at all. No.
He did have a good start, though. Unfortunately.
He did. He was in the pack. He was actually right adjacent to the Ferrari cars when they had that incident. So
I think he just got a little super aggressive. He started good, but not good.
Well, as you recall, Lando Norris called him during the virtual Grand Prix to ask him, "Hey, how do you start from the back of the grid?" So with a start that isn't at the back of the grid, maybe he just got a little too excited.
It's his first time in F1. He's not starting in 19th or 18th.
Yeah.
So,
That was a good move.
So, so from there we move forward to this is kind of the story of this race, the midfield inter-team battles, right? So lap 19, we see Ocon and Ricardo going back and forth, kind of fighting each other. Ricardo seemed to be faster. He was on mediums, actually, whereas Ocon was on soft. So it just kind of makes sense to let Ricardo go by, save tires, and have him go out longer into the race. But Ocon, I guess back to his old tricks back when he was in Force India, just elbows out, not letting his own teammate pass, who was on a different strategy that would have benefited the whole team.
Ocon being Ocon.
Yeah.
no, bro. Listen, you're gonna fight until the team tells you. It certainly seemed when Danny Rick finally got that move done, that Ocon let him by. And I think he let him by because the team told him, listen, Danny Rick is on a different strategy, let him go. And then you can fight I think the Force Indians were up ahead, if I'm not mistaken. And you could take the race to them because at the end of the day, you're still trying to overtake them. And you're fighting with them in the, for points. So, listen, racing drivers are going to be racing drivers. They're going to fight each other. They're going to race. And if you're in similar cars, it's going to be a close battle. Now that's where the team comes in and they have to step in and say, listen, we're going to burn tires. We need these tires for later on in the race. Let him by. He's quicker than you. And the teams can actually tell you who's quicker, who not through GPS and all of that stuff. So do I blame Ocon? Nah. I mean, he's a racing driver. That's what they do.
No,
The
I
team
think
should have stepped. Sorry, go ahead.
in the case, Ocon was also, or they were pretty much too close to the cars behind as well. So if Ocon was slowed down sooner, I think Gasly was behind Rick, and Gasly would have been able probably to get a jump as well. And Ocon was not that far from Sainz up front, so it was kind of tricky. It was not only to like maybe like 17, 18 where Sainz got a gap, and that's pretty much when Danny Rick just passed over.
So they were fighting the racing points or the McLaren.
They were fighting, I believe, the McLarens at the time.
The McLarens.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Well,
one of those things where you need to understand you're not going to win the drivers' championship. Every point for you doesn't matter. What does matter is the constructors' championship at the end of the year for your team.
So
You need to
we will get that
realize you're on the worst, not the worst strategy, but on a different strategy, and let your teammate pass.
But I think that you don't think that I don't know what happened there, but you don't. I think the team stepped in because it looked like Ocon was moving over for Danny Rick.
I don't.
Oh, you think it was a little too late?
I think Ricardo kind of overtook him.
I don't know. Oh, well, I guess we'll look at the footage. That'll be a point of contention. It looked like Danny Rick. I mean, it looked like Ocon let him by it finally.
Yeah, so they could retire 5 laps later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was the end result. Ocon ended up retiring lap 26. He had a cooling issue that kind of just took the car out. Lap 25, Max was behind Ham and in front of Bottas. So he was done as far as like Bottas could have undercut him. Ham could have overcut. Like he was just stuck strategy wise. So what Red Bull ended up doing is they made the choice for him. They said, hey, look, come in, pit, and we're gonna try and undercut or try to cancel out the potential undercut from Bottas. Lap 27, Hamilton comes in and pits on mediums. So I don't know. There was not much that Red Bull could do as far as their strategy because they were just stuck in no man's land. It was just those top 3 cars, and Mercedes could just do whatever they needed to do.
Wellington, can you explain to our audience what an undercut is?
Okay.
So they understand what it is.
So an undercut is when you pit and you jump onto what are essentially fresher tires, whatever they may be, the hard, medium, softs. The fresher tires allow for better grip. And I'm saying better grip because as the races go on, you put energy into the tires and that causes them to start degrading. The degradation of the tires forces slower lap times because now you're losing grip and now you have to be a little more careful going around corners. Not much more careful, but going around corners or like high speed radii or anything like that. So in essence, your tires get slower as they get older. So what Red Bull wanted to avoid was Valtteri Bottas, who was behind them, going from softs into fresh mediums and closing the gap to a point where by the time that Max came out of the pit stop, that he would be even or behind Bottas.
And a better chance to overtake him basically once once Bottas comes out of the pits. So I mean, and that's a strategy, and you're gonna see that a lot, especially in the midfield. You'll see that a lot during races. So just look out for that. You can, because you cannot you can overtake on track, but you can also overtake in the pits and take advantage of a slow pit stop or something like
Right.
that.
And the reverse of that is an overcut where a driver will stay out longer if they're managing their tires well, will negate the advantage if they have decent tires. They'll negate the advantage of the potential undercut, and then they'll have better tires at the end to either catch or extend a lead against the rival driver.
So pretty much what they try to do with Bottas after.
Exactly. So the Red Bull eliminated the undercut, and then what ended up happening is Bottas came back in. I'm sorry, Hamilton came in to the pits, and then Bottas stayed out longer and created an overcut situation, which actually ended up playing out at the end of the race where Bottas caught Max and was able to pass him. Granted, he had a better car, but that the tire strategy played into it.
Well, I think, oh yeah, you're right, and the reason why Bottas was able to catch Max at the end was because Max pitted too early. I think he pitted like 5 laps earlier than he did.
Right.
So at the end of the race, Max's tires were gone, and Bottas' tires had better grip, so he can easily. I mean, even though Max gave him a good fight at it, that's why you gotta love Max. But we'll get to that later.
And his wing also didn't help much.
Right.
Well, yeah, he damaged the wing also.
So while their upfront battle and strategy is going on, we also have in the midfield, it was actually very entertaining. We had Renault, McLaren, and Racing Point literally just going at each other. It was actually very entertaining. Carlos Sainz ended up going into the pits on lap 33, and it turns out to be a 7.2 second stop, which was it's horrible. It's double, almost triple what you actually want it to be.
Yeah, they had an issue with that.
It looks like he took a lunch break.
Yeah. Well, that's crazy. What's crazy is that that used to be a fast pit stop. Now the way these pit stops are in F1, if you take more than 2 seconds, you're already taking too long. It's crazy. If you guys have to watch this stuff. It's so amazing.
So from there, Lance Stroll ends up pitting also in lap 33, but his pit stop is much faster. And what that ends up doing is Stroll pits a lap after. Stroll ends up overtaking Sainz just due to the pit stop strategy. He comes out on a lap fresher tires with a faster engine and just is able to do what he needs to do, right? Coming right out of the pit stop. Stroll, after coming out, also just flies by both Alfa Romeos. They look like they were standing still. That Racing Point looks like it's going to be a real problem going forward for everybody else.
It's like a rocket.
It sure is, man. It's a rocket. It's super fast, man. And you got to put it in the hands of a capable driver like Sergio Perez. Sergio Perez, I mean, he didn't get the outcome that he should have gotten in this race, but he was flying in this race, man. He was flying.
He looked like the wily old veteran that we know him to be. But I just want to draw a comparison. When Bottas went into pit in lap 34, it was 2.3 seconds. Compare that to Carlos Sainz, 7.2 second pit stop. 5 seconds is an eternity in Formula One.
I mean, if we're talking about 10 to be in an eternity. Imagine 5 seconds. That's crazy. I mean, it's things like that happen, and that's what makes these races interesting. So I'm not mad at that. But I mean, if you're looking at it from the viewpoint of McLaren, yeah, man, that shouldn't happen, But that's why they race. Things like this happen.
Yeah, things like this happen because he had a problem with the tires, so it happens. It got stuck.
Yeah, they could. Well, it's better that. I mean, at least they finished the race. It's better that than having an unsafe release where they're. If they
Exactly.
have an unsafe release and that wheel nut is on, it happen. What could happen is two things: either they have an unsafe release and they catch it early, so they have to retire the car, or the wheel falls off, like Kimmy's wheel did last race. So.
So from there, we see it looks just kind of trying to read my notes. We go through and we have Perez who ended up pitting, and now it's lap 40 where he's having a battle with Carlos Sainz, and they literally go at it throughout the whole lap. It was awesome to see two established veteran drivers going at it, and then
That's the action we want to see, man. We want to see
That
these
was
guys fight.
beautiful action.
Yeah.
it's nice to actually see Carlos Sainz on camera. Doesn't really. But at the end of it, Perez comes out victorious. He calls into his engineer and he's like, what do you think, man? Do you like that? He's just like, he's ready to go. He's fired up.
He sounds like a kid looking for affirmation, man.
How do you like that?
Did I do good, Mom? Did I do good?
I told you I got this.
Lap from there going on forward, lap 46, you get more of this essentially just really dumb stuff. Stroll and Perez fighting each other back and forth, both on essentially new tires. I just don't like it. When you have Ricardo ahead of you, Sainz behind you, now you're all of a sudden you're killing your tires fighting each other.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense, man. I was looking at the lap times at the rate that they were lapping. Perez was lapping half a second faster than Lawrence Stroll. So when you're that fast, and we're not talking about 1/10, we're not talking about 2/10, we're talking about half a second. That's like we said, time differences in F1 are measured in tenths and hundredths of a second. We're not talking about 1 second or 2 seconds. So when you have your teammate is lapping that much faster, there's no point, because what happens is when you are fighting your teammate, when you have to weave the car back and forth on the track and trying to do an overtake, you're burning up your tires and you're shredding up your tires. And you need that for later on in the race. You got to get to the end of the race. You only score points if you finish the race.
And this is on his teammate he was doing it, by the way.
Yeah, so why, if you're fighting, let's say if you're fighting an opponent, fine, but and it's worth it because you got to get points. But if you're fighting your own teammate and your own teammate is lapping half a second faster than you, let him by, man. Let him fight the people at the end, because you know what happens if he's fighting somebody else, then he's slowing that next guy up so you can move up in the points.
Absolutely.
As well.
And as a reminder, this is for 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th in the Drivers' Championship. So at the end of the day, it's not going to make much of a difference. Where it helps is that prize money per the constructors. So it doesn't make sense. When you have Ricardo ahead of you, figure it out. Like, the team should have jumped in and said, yo, stop the fighting. Perez is faster. Go attack Ricardo. So from there, like we were just talking about, lap 46, Perez then overtakes Ricardo on lap 49 and very quickly opens up a 10-second gap between himself and Ricardo. That's how fast he was going.
Dude was putting in fastest lap after fastest lap after fastest lap. He was beasting. I've never seen anything like that. And well, I've seen stuff like that, but not in the midfield. But that car is quick, man. You put and that with new tire, with fresh tires, man, he was gone, bro. He was gone. You see that, but that's just what I'm telling you. Why are you holding him up? Why do you have your teammate holding you up when you have that kind of pace? Let him go. Let him go. He killed this race. He did such a good job. He should have gotten a better result.
Perez had the sauce in this race. He's getting comfortable.
He said he had the sauce.
Yeah, he had the sauce. He's getting comfortable, with the car, with the speed, and showing more and more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Remember, Perez is a decent guy when it comes to next to Stroll. Perez has been around for a long time.
Yeah, so he's a veteran driver. He's gritty.
Yep.
Yeah, and Stroll, Well, Wellington, go ahead because we're gonna come up to this point. I don't want
No, so
to.
as we said, Perez is putting in fastest lap after fastest lap, and he's gaining on Albon, and it looks like it's going to be a fight for that. What was it? That fourth place slot, and he got it to within a second. At the same time, Stroll now 15 seconds. Stroll and Ricardo now 15 seconds behind Perez, and remember that Stroll didn't want to let him by. Now they're battling it out, and what ends up happening is we talk about the teamwork. McLaren's two drivers, Norris and Sainz, they come up to each other after Norris is on fresher tires. They tell Sainz to move over. Norris passes him, gains on both Ricardo and Stroll. And while they are battling, Norris ends up attacking them both and ends up really towards the end of the race being able to overtake both of them.
Yeah, but you know, before that, the fact that Stroll couldn't overtake Ricardo, which was Ricardo was on think on soft, which was a horrible strategy call on Renault's part. The fact that you can tell how not good of a racing driver Stroll is, that it took him like what 15 almost 20 laps. I don't know the exact count to get past Ricardo
It
in
took him a
that
long time.
sense. And that yeah, and then but that fight is what caused Lando Norris to catch up to them. You know?
So Martin Brundle was commenting on that as well. His point was that Ricardo was so heavy on the battery that he was so good on it, I should say, that he was not giving Lance Stroll the time of day to be able to get past him. Stroll was keeping it close throughout the whole lap, but once it got to a point where it was a straight or something that he could get past him, the utilization of the battery and the positioning of the car really screwed up what Stroll was trying to do. Just points out that it's not about the car; it's also the driver.
About the driver. It's also about the driver. Danny Rick did a masterful.
Not gonna give it easy though. Remember that Ricardo's not
Yeah.
gonna let him. Hey, come on past me. No, you got to earn.
But that's the difference between driver. Switch positions. Put Danny Rick in that car and put Lance Stroll in the Renault. Danny Rick does that move.
Of course.
Regardless.
Where?
The driver matters, man. The driver matters. And then, and just to explain to those that don't know, these cars run on a hybrid system. So they have obviously a combustion engine, and then they have a battery pack which provides you around 160 extra horsepower, and you can deploy it whenever you want. So what was happening was that Ricardo knew on the track where the I was about to say Force India again, where the racing point would gain on him, where he couldn't gain on him, and he would use that power to give him a little bit more extra horsepower to defend him. So Ricardo did a masterful job, and I don't want to take any credit away from him, but Lance Stroll had a better car, had better tires. You got to get past him. Danny Rick's tires were gone. They were gone, completely gone. He was just managing the race, and he still managed to keep him behind. I don't know how many laps.
We also have to say that Racing Point is a fast car now, because Lance Stroll wouldn't have been nowhere near Ricardo, regardless of what has happened.
Yeah, that car is quick, man. And I said it. I said it before the season started. That car is going to be super quick. If they can get some and imagine when they start getting Aston Martin money, they're moving up, man. They're moving up. That team was pretty good, punching below its weight. A few years back, it's a pretty good team. They got a pretty good engineers over there. Now you got money behind it. Watch out for them, man. They're gonna be good.
They got money behind them, and now it's showing. Before, when they were broke and fighting, they were still doing good in the midfield. Now that they have funding, they're doing very good.
Yeah.
Laps 66, 67. You see Max and Valtteri Bottas going back and forth in what is a 2-lap battle in which Bottas has the better tires, better car, and Max is just not even letting them. Not that he's not letting them pass, but he's putting up a fight.
Yeah, but that's what Max does, man. Max is not gonna let you go by. He even said it after the race. He said, "Listen, I knew that he was eventually gonna get passed by me, but you gotta give him a fight. You gotta give him a hard time. And eventually a lap later he did. But that's the sign of a great racing driver, man. I'm just not gonna give it to you, man. You got to take it from me. And Max has always been like that, man.
You also have to give credit to Bottas. Bottas, he was very calm doing it, back and forth with him. They were both very clean. I think if Bottas would have been over aggressive, they probably would have hit each other.
Yeah, but that goes to the patience, and I asked this question last race when it came to Albon trying to overtake or you know yeah Albon trying to overtake Lewis Hamilton. The you gotta know when to make the right moves. Everything's moving very quick, so you can't just say, "Oh, I'm gonna pass you like you pass a car on the highway." You gotta be calculated in your moves, and everything is moving so quick. You gotta know when to make the right move, and then also take into consideration, I have better tires, I have faster tires. There's so many things that go into account that we can't even fathom. Us normal people, us non-racing drivers.
Speak for yourself.
But 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 Botas said, "All right, fight me, but I'm gonna get you eventually." And he did that. He showed he's a veteran. He knows what he's doing.
So after that battle, the gaps were such that after Max lost that battle, the gaps were such that Max was able to pit and come out ahead of Albon to try and get the fastest lap. Here's where I get pissed off. He comes out of the pits and he's fighting back markers to try and get track position, and that's what the camera, the race director is showing. And I said it during the race, and I'm like, I don't care about freaking Max. You have signs closing in on the signs was closing in on whoever was ahead of him. I don't even remember because I was fuming. And then on top of that, you had Perez and Albon. They were like a tenth apart. So the racing director was more interested in Max, his leisurely driving Miss Daisy, passing the Haas's at the time.
Yeah, I was glued to the timing sheets to the timing board because I wanted to see what was going on. I wanted to see how close he was. Like we couldn't see anything.
Yeah, it
It's
was.
just frustrating. Sometimes they do a good job. I think he did it. I think the director did a good job in showing the battles in the midfield. But dude, when something's happening, go to that. I want to see that, man. Come on.
I
That
think we
was,
should have a direct email to one of those guys one of these days and tell them how we really feel regarding of the job that they're doing. Because, granted, they did better. They're doing better. This week was good in the midfield.
Mhm.
Show some, but they still missed out on a lot of midfield stuff. I personally didn't like the Verstappen pit stop coming out of the traffic. How you going to expect him to get a fastest lap? That sucked for Red Bull, but they tried. He still finished the same position. But come on, man, we missed a lot of action for sure.
They showed him going into he was in the pit lane. They showed the pit stop. They show him coming out, and it's like, yo, what the hell are we watching here? He's not going to lose a plate. Who cares? So from there, what ended up happening that we did not see is Albon was under attack from Perez. They end up colliding, and that screws up Perez's wing, his front wing. But we're so close to the end of the race, he doesn't come in to change it. There's no safety car called or anything like that. I don't think they really dropped any debris. But that ended up having such a major effect on the action to end the race, and we didn't even see it until it was a replay, when they decided to show a replay to let us know what happened. Thank you, guys.
Replay that well.
Always great last lap action at the Red Bull Ring. The fact that they didn't show it is maddening, but it was fun to see because the race wasn't as good as the last one, but just watching everything that was going on in that last lap was crazy, man.
So, like we mentioned earlier, it was Ricciardo and Stroll fighting. They went off track a little bit. Norris pushing on top of him, and now he passes. It's Stroll ahead with Norris, and he passes Ricciardo. Then because of the damage to the front wing, Perez is literally he's moseying around the track, and come the last lap, they are seriously putting some time into it and gaining on him. And what ends up happening is that leads into essentially a drag race right at the end of the race, where Norris comes out on top with, I believe it was Perez behind him and Stroll after that, with Ricciardo finishing as the last of those 4 cars. But it was a very exciting ending. Your guys' thoughts?
How about Lando, man? Lando. When Lando wants to get something done, bro, he gets it done, man. When that team need, he said, "Listen, I'm going for it." Just the same way the team told him in the last lap of the last race, he said, "Yo, go, 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 go," and he just went. He got his podium. He finished 5th, I believe, in this race. Man, he was nowhere near 5th in this race, man. It was awesome. It was just, that's the type that those are the finishes that we want to see. Even if it's in the midfield, those are that is what we want to see, man.
Yeah, that little three-way battle between Ricardo, Stroll, and Norris for like the last couple of laps, that was super dope. It was at one point that it looked like Norris was going to overtake both of them. Remember, because Stroll and Ricardo were fighting, and they went off, and Norris was just right there. So, obviously,
yeah, I thought it was too, man.
Helped
and it was. And it was pretty good to see, the 2 racing points and Ricardo just basically a drag race at the end to the finish line to see who finished. That was pretty cool.
So I want to point something out here. We saw Perez and Stroll have an inter-team battle, not letting one or the other pass. We had Ricardo and Ocon have an inter-team battle, not letting one or the other pass. Ultimately, those seconds are added on at the end. And we saw Norris and Sainz. There was cooperation. Norris was able to go by Sainz no problem, setting up what essentially was this photo finish. It was less than 1 second between Norris and Perez. It was 1/10 between Perez and Stroll, and it was another 10th between Stroll and Ricardo. Imagine they didn't fight in the middle of the races, where they would be.
Well, but you know what? If they didn't do that, then we wouldn't get the race that we wanted.
Yeah, that's true.
That we got it. So I mean, listen, this is what makes these races interesting, man. The mistakes that these teams make. Not everybody. We can get mad at the team for making those mistakes because hindsight is always 20/20. But when you're in the heat of the moment, decisions get made, and sometimes these decisions lead to amazing race endings or an amazing race in entirety. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, if they didn't have those little, back and forth thing between the teams, that would have helped on the timesheets. But at the end, I kind of like a little drag race. Also, I just have to be with the race director a little more, so he could be more on that action. That's regardless if it's just the teams holding each other up or the back and forth between different drivers. We want to see that. We want to see that action, so it could be more entertaining to all of us.
Dude, I said it at the beginning of the race. I did not even know what was going on. The 2 Ferraris crashed, and then that was all they showed for like a good 5 minutes. And it's like, dude, the whole rest of the other race is going. Like, come on.
No, I like what they were saying as well. They were saying that that they're missing the Ferrari. A race without Ferrari. Martin Brundle was saying that during the race. That it's kind of odd to see a race without Ferrari. Granted,
it was much better. You're right. That was a much better race.
Listen, man, it was a fun race, regardless if Ferrari was in it or not. I would have liked to see the Ferraris in it, but I'm not gonna go as far as saying that the race is not as good because the Ferraris are there. You're gonna get double DNFs. It happens. It shouldn't have happened considering their position. But it was a pretty good race. It wasn't a great race, but it was pretty good, And honestly, considering how long we've gone without seeing racing action, we had a pretty good 2 weeks at the Red Bull Ring.
Absolutely.
No,
totally
different races, by the way.
Oh yeah, and they were
totally different.
Go ahead, Ruben. I'm sorry.
That they were both totally different races, and as far as results, action, we did not get, we got the same track, but two totally different spectacles.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and then and that was the fear coming into the season where you're gonna get two races at the same track. They felt, or everybody felt like, and I think we all felt the same way, that it's gonna be a copy paste of last weekend. But what really happened is it was an enhancement. It was like, what did I do wrong this week that I can improve on next week? And these teams, as showed how good they are, that they made the changes and they put on a different show. It wasn't necessarily better. I thought the first race was better, but it's a different show. It just adds on to the story. Now, I think the next one that we're gonna get is gonna be Silverstone.
No, Hungaroring.
No. I'm talking about as far as a doubleheader where you would get two races in the same track.
Okay.
Yes.
That'll be fun to watch. But yeah, we got to go to the Hungaroring first.
I'd be okay going to Austria again for a third time.
Really? Wow.
I'm kidding.
I'm good.
No, but
it was fun, but we need something new.
Some of the things that I had called out to watch was Lando Norris. He's shown now 3 times in a row that he is good at Austria. I said this in our preview leading into it, to watch out for him. Scores, he gets to 5th place. And then also the racing points. They had made the strategic error previously, and Lance Stroll's car went out, but they had made the strategic error with Perez. He was fighting for 4th, and he was past Albon, if not for that collision. So it's interesting to see some of the differences you can kind of pick up from one race to another at the same spot.
Yeah, I mean, again, every race is different. Every race will have its different situations, and now we're gonna go to a new track, and that's gonna be different. The pecking order is gonna be different. Everybody has their strengths and weaknesses.
Can't wait for next
That's what we love about this sport, man. Yeah, that's what we love about this sport. It's not always gonna be the same,
So just run down the results. The final results for the race were Hamilton finished 1st, Bottas 2nd, Max Verstappen 3rd, comprising the podium. Alexander Albon was 4th, Lando Norris 5th, Sergio Perez 6th, Lance Stroll 7th, Daniel Ricciardo 8th, Carlos Sainz 9th, and Daniel Kvyat 10th place, scored 1 point. Fastest lap ended up being Carlos Sainz, who pitted late to be able to get that fastest lap.
Carlos Sainz, future Ferrari driver. Huh?
I wonder if he's the move.
No, I think
the
show to date what may happen when he goes to Ferrari. He led Norris through with no problem, so he's probably going to have to go to Leclerc. After all, they're going to be past 10 anyway. So
I think Carlos Sainz is going to be a good add to the Ferrari team. Now let's see if they can get their act together. I don't see good things coming from them this season, and I don't know what's going to happen next season. It's going to be the same car, but listen, that's why we watch the races. That's why they go racing.
So top 3 in the driver standings after race number 2: Valtteri Bottas number 1 with 43 points, Lewis Hamilton number 2 with 37 points.
Ooh.
Yeah, and then Lando Norris number 3 with 26 points.
Still in 3rd.
Yeah,
Wellington. What do you think after the first 2 weekends? Do you now that we kind of know the order of where these cars are running, do you think that we're in store for just a Mercedes battle at the top, or you think Max is going to have something to say?
No, it's going to be a Mercedes battle at the top. We'll see next week. Hungaroring is more of a technical track, and Red Bull is more suited for that type of track. But, I said that coming into Austria, and look what happened. Problem is that from there, we're going to go into a doubleheader into Silverstone, which is a power track, and they're going to get blown. Red Bull's going to get blown away. So Mercedes is already up 42 points in the Constructors' Championship. It's almost a foregone conclusion without the competition for Ferrari.
Yeah, I mean, and they were so far ahead last year too that it was just inevitable. This is why we want to see that cost cap come in. Bring the teams a little bit in closer so we can have more of a competition throughout the year.
When you consider that it looks like there was no issue with the sensors hitting the curbs and stuff like that for the Mercedes engines, that would have been the major chink in the armor. But
they I think they still had the issues. Lewis said after the race, he was trying to keep up the curbs, but they had a better grasp of it. So and the drivers did their jobs, man. They have it's a good team, and they have really good drivers. Bottas is a good driver too. He's not as good as Lewis, obviously, but it just goes to show you that that team is a well-oiled machine, man. It's going to take a lot for anybody to dethrone them.
Yeah, I think this year is going to be tough not to have, Mercedes taking it all. But we still have yet to see Max run a clean race. Today, obviously he didn't show top end speed, but he also had a broken wing. Which also, remember, the aerodynamics in the Red Bull always helps him.
Ruben, do you think that Bottas can beat Hamilton this year?
No. Not distracted enough.
Bottas is going to have to maintain some level of freaking focus to be able to get past Hamilton.
Well, look at what Nico Rosberg had to do to beat Hamilton. He basically had to become enemies with him, and go down to some really questionable tactics just to beat him personally. So I mean,
look at the end of the day,
Lewis is the tough guy to beat. Man.
Mercedes is going to build such a lead that the team orders won't even matter because they're just going to be so far ahead that I think that you're just going to let Bottas and Hamilton go at it.
Which will be fun for us to watch, man. That 2016 season was fun to watch.
No, yeah.
I mean, we always want to see a title fight, which we haven't gotten the past few years. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting. It just sucks that it has to be on the same team,
All right, well, that's about it coming out of this race. Do you guys have any final thoughts?
I just want to see how everything shapes up at the Hungaroring. The Hungaroring is, like you said, a very technical track. It suits more of a car that's prepared better aerodynamically rather than a power track. So let's see where Red Bull is. I think Red Bull is the only other team that can maybe mount some competition towards Mercedes. Yeah, the races are pretty good there. So it'll be. I'm just looking forward ahead, man. We got racing, and that's all we want. We want to see racing.
Yeah, I think next week is going to show pretty much where Red Bull is. If Red Bull fights next week steadily, it shows that it could probably bring up the action. But if Mercedes is able to, leave him in the dust next week, I doubt they'll be catchable this week or this year.
Absolutely.
We say it's going to show where Red Bull is, but it almost hurts me to say that because it's almost like, okay, we're going to see where Max is in comparison to where Ham and Bottas are, because even look at the difference between Max and Albon, where they were. It's hard not to give Max credit in that sense, in that he's keeping up. He's got not a dog of a car, but it's a worse car, and he's pushing the heck out of a team that's with a car that's far better.
Yeah, I mean, and that car is that this year's Red Bull car is reminding me a lot of that 2017 Mercedes car, where it was tough to handle, but it was still very quick.
It was a diva, they said.
Yeah, it was. They said exactly. It was a diva. And they still managed to win the championship, even though Ferrari did give them a good fight that season. But if there's any driver that can tame that diva, it would be Max Verstappen, and he's showing it, man. He's he ran second most of the race, and I think that the early pit stop is what did him in eventually. But Max is an excellent driver, and he's that pedigree of a driver that can hustle a car around the track regardless of the car. So
imagine he didn't DNF last week. He would have been second place right now, Constructors Championship.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I think we came into the season expecting, a fight between Hamilton and Verstappen at the top. I'm hoping we can still get a three-way fight with Bottas, Hamilton, and Verstappen, but we'll see how everything shakes out.
Absolutely. All right, so guys, I just want to say one thing. Well, number one, thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the race. Let us know. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Actually, not yet on iHeartRadio. Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and YouTube. please follow, like, subscribe on all those platforms or on whichever platform is your favorite. Make sure to drop us comments actually on YouTube, or you can send us an email at jumptostartracing@gmail.com. Let us give us some feedback, or if you have any questions, we'll make sure to read the emails out on the air. Do you guys have any last comments?
Also, follow us on Instagram, Jump to Start Racing podcast and also on Twitter. So we're on all those platforms. Drop us a like, drop us a comment. We'll be happy to mingle with you guys.
All right. Thanks for joining us. Peace out.
Peace out, guys. Bye.